So I'm by the pool area here. I'm gonna show you. It's actually empty, this pool area now, so literally it is only me at this pool area. And because I was by the organic food shop today, I actually picked up. So I picked up these. It's like let's see here, Japanese forms of crackers, brown rice, and they are basically vegan. They are not fried, have no artificial anything. They are really good. Like they have mainly black sesame seeds, brown rice, tamari soy sauce, which are like you know, it's like made by soya beans, water and sea salt, and then it has a brown rice syrup, water and kusu starch. I don't know what kusu starch is, but I'm assuming it's something that is similar to maize. What is it called? To corn, basically. So it's almost like only sesame seeds. So I was by there when I was with one of my friends studying here. So I'm going to type now on either my master paper or on the book that I'm writing. So how consistent have I been with the book? Well, I haven't necessarily been that consistent with it. I started off and you know, was kind of writing on it for, you know, like solid for a couple of days, doing a little every day. But then I haven't necessarily been typing on it for a while. So because now I'm doing philosophy, so philosophy of science. So therefore I sort of having some inputs that are quite relevant for the book's sort of content as well, and therefore I can sort of apply certain concepts and theories as well on the book, or like how should I say, contain or add them as well into this basically let's see, into the book basically. So I'm gonna show you one more thing that I also picked up, because the organic food shop that they have here in Dubai, honestly they have sort of really exploited form of the organic foods and markets here nowadays, because there is you can find organic food stuff like in all types of supermarkets and on you know, these more informal type of markets that they actually have here, which are really nice. It's sort of farmer markets that you can visit, and so they actually have a brand which is called Vivani. It's like basically it's like a bio organic type of chocolate brand. However, this one says it's vegan, but on the other hand it also says that it could contain traces of cow's milk, so I wouldn't necessarily say this one is 100% vegan, but it is well, the main content is not basically any form of animal. So this is with cranberries, and I figure I'm going to, I mean, I have tried this one multiple times before, but I think I'm going to pick up this one. They have a variety of different flavors. They also have what's called chili flakes that they put into the chocolate, which is quite nice. And it is also a form of dark chocolate, you know. So I'm quite into that type of thing. So basically I have sort of how I have structured up this book, because I'm writing about my own experience going to like Al-Quds or Jerusalem. I was there in 2016, and that is quite a long time, so I'm trying to recall every single detail based on my memory, and as you probably are aware, memory is not the most reliable thing. So basically how I started off is that I wrote down all of the experience related things mostly, and like what I basically can recall from my memory. And I think how I'm going to structure this is sort of to base, because of this is from my memory, I wasn't writing this when I actually was there. I'm going to make the chapter itself as a form of recalling from the memory experience, you know, because it says quite a lot of how we are also comprehending the reality, you know, like the context and reality itself. I mean, what I'm recalling from my memory is not the actual reality, you know, it is something that I have perceived and sort of interpreted, and you know, it has been sort of gathered in my memory, but that is the experience itself that I'm trying to explain here, you know, and sort of enforce as a form of reality, because as a reader you're going to experience these elements as a form of as a present of Jerusalem, you know. So that's what I'm writing on. Am I going to try and make it more complex, or like more or less combined with philosophy, certain like psychological type of elements, because I mean it shouldn't be too, like my experience itself is very naive, and that is a good point, because if you have too much prior knowledge about something, it's going to be very much a form of already structured type of experience. If you have very little experience, it's going to be more or less something that is, you know, you cannot compare things to things, you know. So because I did not read any history, and I'm very happy I didn't read history before I went here, because history itself is not objective, it is not a neutral form of description. History is very much a form of selective type of recalling of past present timings, you know, and it is also based on the interest of the one who is actually trying to give that historical overview. So it's not something you basically can base the entire, you know, you cannot apply it as a form of actual reality, you know, like because in simultaneously there is multiple things happening, and from all of that there is only a few segments that are sort of highlighted in the historical recall, you know, and it's going to be based on who is trying to describe this, you know, someone who has an interest and has a form of perspective based in a certain paradigm, or just a form of maybe political stance, or philosophical stance, or just any other form of knowledge background or something. They're going to recall history in a different way, you know. So it's very hard to, and also like when history is repeated and like reinforced by being retold, it is also kind of narrowing down alternative ways, perspective to perceive history. So you're getting a form of you know, monopole on the historical explanation, you know. So therefore you should be critic to history, because if some form of history is too valid in its own way of being described, then there is like a form of you don't look at other alternative ways to perceive exactly the same event and stuff, and that is very important, you know, to actually be able to have different perspectives, you know, because constantly there is a multiplied ways of perceiving the same phenomena and stuff, so you have to have that in your sort of understanding, you know. So that is what I sort of is going to include here in the first chapter, I'm assuming. And then I don't know how long the chapters are going to be, but I think for the second chapter, which I haven't really gotten that far with, I'm going to base the whole, I'm going to try and or actually that's something I have started off with, but trying to gather the philosophical stances, you know, that I want to include. So let's say I have deconstruction, which I think is very relevant in this matter, because each of the words and the way that things in this setting and context is described is going to be differently described depending on the language used. And not only that, but each of the words used are, you know, is also explained by number of other words within the same language, you know. So that sort of is also shaping what sort of is understood to be in this case, you know. And so I want to sort of bring that into this, and also like, because time and being, you know, first of all, what is it to be, you know, what is a being and what is the prior essence to the beingness, you know. That is a philosophical question, but to actually process time, and this is something I think is so relevant in this context and stuff, is to actually try and describe how time is something that we are inventing constantly over and over by the fact that we are moving, and that is what is sort of causing the time future, you know, but it's not actually something that is occurring, you know. So that means that all these other events and moments that has passed, they are sort of intermingling in the present, you know. And therefore it becomes quite interesting when you're viewing something that has so much history or so much meaning involved, you know. So that's sort of how I am writing on this, you know. So for the third chapter I will see what I'm going to add in here, but I have a lot of ideas, so there is absolutely no lack of ideas. So yeah. So I'm going to try and type on this one, and also I'm gonna pick up this book. So in my master course we had one of the course literature was actually philosophy of science, and no, philosophy of methodology, and that specific book was actually referring, I think, maybe 20 times to Heidegger, and this is related to these types of questions regarding being and time, because when you're doing research in science, any form of field you're going to do research in, especially like in social science or psychology or something like this, you need to consider these stances and the ontological premises behind the research itself. Like, what are you going to do the science about? How are you going to interpret the results? You have your methods that are found within the certain paradigm that you are sort of doing your research from, but you have to also consider those elements that are underlying those methods, you know, because it sort of is giving you already a form of, you know, sort of a lens on the actual result, how you're going to be sort of comprehending the data that you are gathering, you know. And especially when you're doing research on human activity or humanity, you know, therefore you have even more sort of you have even more importance to actually look into the philosophical stances behind certain things, you know, because you're always trying to get to the essence of things, you know. However, you are not trying to describe any form of truth here. You are just trying to describe things from a scientific point of view, you know, and that is not to say that it's truth, you know. Science is not claiming truth here, you know, it's just claiming a good explanation. So basically it's quite interesting, you know. I know that some people who are, you know, in any form of nature-based science field, let's say engineering stuff, they may don't have the means or the incitament to actually look into to philosophy, and like how their own scientific field is actually sort of determined by philosophical stances, you know. But I think it's quite relevant because science is based on westernized philosophy, and if you don't understand westernized philosophy, well, then you're going to sort of go lost in the scientific field, because it's very important to have that connection of where the science is taking its lead from, you know. Science is not neutral, it is not objective, and it is only trying to explain things in a way that makes sense, in a very elegant and simple manner. But you know, you still have to consider where it actually has its sort of roots in the philosophy, you know. And I know that, you know, I'm not saying that science is not, you know, invented in any other setting than the let's say, European sort of field, because actually a lot of the maths and, you know, different sciences, medicine and that was actually sort of, you know, developed in around Baghdad and these places, you know. But the philosophy that is currently applied behind the science that we use today, that is a European-based shaped matter, you know. And it's important to understand how that is influencing the science and how it is influencing the results of science, you know. And it's not to say that it's good or bad, because honestly you can view it from whatever angle you want to view it from, because science brings a lot of positive things, but knowledge itself is very much a form of power thing, because as you are able to use knowledge in a sense that people also who are thinking in the sense of knowledge and applying it, they also are sort of helping to create certain power accumulations, actually, you know. And that is something that is occurring. Also, it can be restrictive, because as you are sort of applying certain sets of knowledge in institutions and stuff, it actually becomes the foundation that is also having its own agenda, you know, and that agenda has its own, you know, its own kind of stances and stuff. And it's important to understand them, because then you will understand why the hospitals and all these institutions actually are operating in the way that they are, you know. And that is what, for example, one very famous philosopher and scholar, and I think he was a professor, he is very well famous. If you do any type of scientific research or going to the university, you're probably going to encounter him in any of your theories and literature, and he is named Foucault, and he was like explaining how power is intervened in all of these institutions that we have currently. For example, the hospital, which is quite relevant to the field that I'm in. So yeah, so it's not so much always about bringing out most health in all aspects, but it's about, you know, a lot of things, you know. You can have a read about Foucault if you are interested, you know. He has written quite a lot of work on these things and how things are functioning, and he's referring to history when he does this to actually explain the alternatives to this. So now it's a call to prayer, so I'm going to end here, because I think it wouldn't make sense if I'm talking while it's a call to prayer. So thank you.